My next guest is a local author whose new novel is set in a fictional town north of Seattle. Not That Kind of Call Girl tackles the real and often unspoken challenges faced by new mothers. Nova Garcia, welcome to New Day.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's nice. This was, I called it a fun read, but also very impactful because you deal with some real deep, important issues.
That's right.
But you do it in a way that's still fun, if I can say that.
Yeah, it's a dark comedy. It's kind of
dark
how
comedy.
I'm telling
That's
people
a good way.
about it. Yeah.
So give us a quick synopsis of the book.
Okay, so the lead character, Julia, works in a call center in a small newspaper north of Seattle, as you said. She's kind of in a rush to hire someone before she goes on maternity leave, so she hires a young college student. Julia goes on maternity leave and figures out that she and motherhood pair as well as toothpaste and orange juice. So she heads back to work early and finds out that Carmen never showed up for work. So the rest of the book is her sort of delving into that to figure out what's going on with Carmen. There is something nefarious going on, and she's trying to solve it.
Yeah, well, she still tries to solve what's going on with herself, Julia.
That's right.
I know you have some thoughts about the way Latinas are often, women, especially Latina women, are often portrayed in literature. How do you aim to change stereotypes with this book?
Well, I think just writing a book with a Latina as the star is kind of breaking the norm as it is. We're 19% of the population, but there aren't that many positively portrayed Latinas in literature. We're often portrayed as the sex workers or the criminals or the resource drainers or whatever. So these are just normal, everyday Latina women, like the kind that I grew up with. They're fierce, they're funny, they're intelligent. And I think it's important to put Latinas out there in literature that represent sort of the everyday Latina, like the people I grew up with.
I would use the word real, too.
Real, absolutely.
Very authentic.
Very real, authentic, exactly.
You called it a dark comedy. I would agree. Postpartum depression is a deeply personal topic to you. Can you tell me about your experience?
Yeah, so I was still 22 when we had our first son. And I had no idea what I was getting into, and neither did my husband. But our son was not only colicky, like 22 hours a day. I was incredibly depressed. I was crying all the time. I was exhausted. I kind of wished I could leave him on a church doorstep somewhere. And I tried to keep it from my husband for fear that he'd think I had the maternal warmth of a rock. But that is really, really hard to do because it's just all encompassing. So I wanted to write a book that sort of portrayed this experience and kind of put it out there in a humorous and relatable way so people can talk about it.
Can I read a passage?
Absolutely.
I told you I'd never find my glasses. And there they are. I found them. You say here, Julia looked at the sleepy baby in her arms and kissed his chubby fist. "I love you, Trey," she said weakly, trying to mean it. The new mother thing was not at all like what Baby's first year magazine depicted or what she'd read on the internet. Wasn't she supposed to love, love, love his velvety skin, soft feathery hair, his little squeaks? Wasn't she supposed to feel an overwhelming sense of devotion? Not so much. She wanted to stick him in the hole from which he came.
and that basically represents my experience in a nutshell.
Yeah, and I loved because that is an experience a lot of women, even those that can not experience it as deeply, but still it's not always what is portrayed, and you really are real, and I think that's so important. My own daughter went through struggles like this, and you said you didn't want to tell your husband, but she also didn't want to tell us, or her husband. So it's so important that we're talking about this.
Yep, I heard you talking about using the word stigma a little bit earlier. There's still a stigma associated with postpartum depression. I mean, when I was a little kid and they said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" and I always said, "A mommy." And who would have ever thought that I hated being a mommy from the get-go? From like within 48 hours of him being born, I was like, this was a mistake. I never should have had this kid.
What's the best way to support a woman who's experiencing postpartum like that?
Well, I think it's important to let her know that she's not alone. This is a lot more normal than people realize. And with Latinas, it's more like 25 to 50% of Latinas experience postpartum depression instead of 1 in 7 in the overall population. So I think letting them know they're not alone, that this will pass, that there's help available out there. You don't have to suffer by yourself. Let your family in, let your friends in, ask people, and if you don't want to ask, that's okay. maybe your friends and family can
Yeah.
have someone come over, help you with chores, help you with make a meal, do some laundry. There are lots of ways that you can be supported.
Tangible instead of just words.
Yes.
And we should also say you talk about a lot of Latina culture in this book, and that also plays into our cultures, always play into what our parents felt and what our ancestors felt, and we kind of almost feel the weight of that sometimes.
Yeah.
So where can we find your book?
You can find it anywhere online, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or any other online retailer. And you can also find it, there's a link on my website as well.
Yeah. Is there another book in you about this?
Well,
or?
I'm working on another book. I just got started, and I'm just still figuring out the plot at this point, so I'm not there yet.
I don't want you to be a little superstitious and maybe you say a little too much, but I really enjoyed it, and I really appreciated what you brought to that in the conversation.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.